Everyone has exacted hate upon others and has also experienced a substantial amount of hate towards them. It is a truly horrible feeling, and humanity has been tasked with getting rid of it. Now, whoever you are, and however little you have experienced hate, I believe that you can execute this task and reduce hate in the world by using the tactics behind Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s peaceful protest. Now, it is impossible for one not to feel overwhelmed when tasked with countering hate nationwide when they are told that they should be like Dr. King in their community and are not taught the specifics of how to become what Dr. King was. Now, I think that one of the best stories to teach this undertaught lesson is one told by Reverend Al Sharpton, a civil worker who endured a grim attack to discover what it meant to fight hate. When he was young, Sharpton looked up to Dr. King. He had been guided into many marches to combat racial prejudice in his community. In each of these marches, he found himself in a sea of progressives surrounded by all of those who hated him and his race with a burning passion. Now one day, in a horrifying turn of events, Sharpton was gruesomely stabbed in the chest by a racist man just before one of these marches. Now Sharpton had never endured such an inhumane act in his life, and now that this enormous danger was made unspeakably clear to him, he had to question what it meant to be a civil rights activist. After a long and painful recovery, his mother confronted him to ask if he had forgiven the attempted killer for what he had done. Now when asked this, Sharpton was only confused, as he saw no reasonable way in which this man's decision was forgivable. He pondered this for some time, and eventually connected his confusion to Dr. King. He recognized that in all of the events in which Dr. King had been attacked, jailed, and beaten, he had always responded peacefully and with forgiveness. Now, although Sharpton still found himself confused with this, he confronted the judge who had convicted the killer and asked him to free him of charge, putting his trust in Dr. King's motives. In the end, the man was still jailed for 9 years. Nevertheless, Sharpton had made a mammoth change to both himself and the attempted murderer, which he had not yet seen. When forgiven, the man no longer felt hateful toward Sharpton, but rather thankful. In a letter to Sharpton soon after, the man wrote of why he felt relieved of hate. His whole life, he had had no one to stand up for him, and as a result, he spent his life as a hateful individual looking to get back at society. Sharpton's forgiveness had sparked something inside the man that he had never felt before: care. He could now see the good in humanity, and began to see goodness in the people who he had once hated. Regardless of its apparent absurdity, forgiveness against all rationale caused the killer to feel less hateful. It is in this that Dr. King's morals lie. He did not forget to say that nothing was done in hate or bad intent, but rather to give those who hate a reason not to. Here, Sharpton discovered what it truly means to be a civil rights activist. Ever since, Sharpton spent his life as a civil worker, standing up for those who had no one to stand up for them, as he now understood that this is the true way to combat hate. It is clear from this that standing up for others is the best way to counter hate, but kids and others with little time on their hands won't have the opportunity to do so on a large scale. How do they fight back? Now it is here where one must remember that actions such as this can be taken on a smaller scale, and yet still have the same effect. So, let's take this to a smaller scale. Most people have been treated hatefully within their own family, at school, or at work. At school, this may be a bully, and in your family, this may be a sibling or parent. As the victim of such treatment, you may feel hate back to whoever is treating you wrong, and this is very difficult to control. In this, however, you must see the reasons for your hate back towards the aggressor. You probably feel wrong in the same way that they do, that you don't deserve the hate which you receive. It is here that you must see that they, similarly, need to feel care regardless of the hate in their actions. By doing this, they will see that you understand their frustration and will have lost much of their reason to hate. Now for me, one of my relatives, who I will leave anonymous, has often felt like an aggressor. Oftentimes, I forget that frustration from their side may be coming from what feels like harsh frustration or maltreatment to them from other sources, or perhaps even from me. To combat this, I have had to realize this and stand up for them by being exceedingly patient and forgiving. As a result, they have found that I do not deserve the hate which I receive, and over time, they have learned to show less hate towards me and those around them. Although on a small scale, Adapting a personality such as this can drastically reduce the hate around you, as I've experienced by doing so. Peaceful protest is known to work well in countering hate, especially under Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Alongside showing that the protesters have good intent and are stronger than hate, protesting peacefully gives those who hate a vision into the purity of those who they oppose so strongly. The key effect of peaceful protest is not highlighted enough, and for this reason, I encourage you not to fight the flames of hate with fire, but to fight it with the water which drowns it out by the source. Thanks for listening, and be safe.